Hello, everybody. This is Anthony Crane with Pocket Coach. Let me start my timer. Let me share my screen. Okay, and let's get into it. So today's experiment is using Slack as a threaded chat tool. So notice that this is actually, you can see there's very little guidance here. It's all telling you to look at a different thing. So if you go to the threaded chat tool, this is the actual experiment we're digging in on. There's already a video for that. Please go watch that first in order to understand why you need a threaded chat tool. But in this case, we're just talking about how to use Slack to earn ranks. So you're going to actually grow your skill in both two things when you do Slack, threaded chat and Slack itself. Okay, so with no further ado, let's talk about our favorite things about Slack. We break this up into 4 topics. Now, this is a longer one, maybe a 15-minute topic. We're going to go 5 minutes. At the end of 5 minutes, we'll do a pivot or persevere, and you can decide if you want to keep listening based on how much value you've gotten so far. So let's do our best 5 minutes we can and then make a decision in 5. So there are 4 things we're going to cover. Slack before email. It's a commitment that you make for yourself. No such thing as too many channels. So most people are like, Anthony, we have so many channels, it's impossible to use Slack. You're misunderstanding Slack if you think that's true. So we can talk about that. Miscellaneous accelerators. We have some things that'll make you faster. And finally, keyboard power moves. I love the keyboard. We're going to talk about keyboard power moves at the end. So that's the 4 big topics in here. Let's see how far we can get in the first 5-minute time box. So first up, Slack before email. For this one, only email people who don't have Slack. It's a personal commitment that you will not email people. If they have Slack, you will Slack them. And that's it. Very simple. Now, by the way, if someone emails you, then copy the email, paste it into Slack, and reply via Slack and say, hey, I think this is more appropriate via Slack. And little by little, you train them to stop emailing you. So very effective. I've done this and single-handedly changed teams, many teams, to use Slack instead of email, just with this one little behavior. Second, commit to Slack before email. When you walk in the door, your instinct is to look at email. Not anymore. You do your Slack. Then after that, you do your email. The only exception is if you have a lot of critical customers who you can only get to through email, then by all means, please set up some email rules to make sure you find them quickly. In the meantime, though, for the rest of us, Slack before email. Now, when you do that, here is a suggested order of attack. Number 1 is to look at your threads. Why? Because threads are in the middle of something. So remember, stop starting, start finishing. This is all about that. Get those threads finished because you've already begun. You'll need to make sure you have your thread notifications set correctly. And you'll also want to avoid post in channel. So let's take a look at what that might look like. So here's Slack. And here are my threads up here. So notice that if this is bolded, I'm going to hit those first. Secondly, you don't get notifications automatically. So if you go here, and go to your preferences, you'll notice that there is notify me about replies to threads. This is off by default in my last couple of companies. So make sure that's turned on and make sure your peers know to turn that on as well, or else they're not going to realize that threads are happening. Okay. And then what was the last little tip here? It was, when you do post in a thread, there will be a thing that says also post to channel. This is a community channel. Don't select that. The whole purpose of threads is to declutter the main channel. So if you do that, all you're doing is recluttering the main channel. You may as well not even use a thread. Now, Slack doesn't handle threads as elegantly as, say, Microsoft Teams. I love the way that Microsoft Teams handle threads, but it's still good enough that you shouldn't be doing this. You might be doing it because people didn't turn on their thread notifications and they never see them. And so that's the behavior you need to fix. Don't clutter up for those who are doing it well. Okay, what else do we got? After threads, drafts. So you'll see here I have a draft. So drafts are things that you started doing. Well, you might want to finish those, again, in the vein of start finishing. So that only appears if you have stuff half written. Red badges. So you're going to see red badges. There's one here that says 50. I'm a little behind. You'll see, but I'm more behind on email because I'm going to clear those before I even look at my email. So do your red badges before you do anything else. So jump around to any channel that has a red badge. Those are going to be your @ mentions, your @ channels, your @ here, and your @ keywords. We'll talk more about that later. Email. At that point, if you've done your threads, you've done your drafts, and you've done your red badges, and if you really love email, please, by all means, go ahead and email your non-Slack friends. After that, you'll notice that there's channels that are bolded but not red. Those are at your leisure, right? When you have time, go to those bolded channels and just kind of look and see what you've missed. If you do this, you're also going to want to turn off email notifications. Otherwise, when you go to your email, you're going to see the same exact thing twice, and you're like, what a waste of my time. And this will declutter your email. You'll have less Slack repeated stuff and more customer external stuff only. And how nice will that be? Okay, so that is my first time box. And I have only achieved Slack before email. We still have 3 more topics to cover. There's no such thing as too many channels, some miscellaneous accelerators, and some keyboard power moves. I think I can get that done in 10 minutes. So if you are gaining value and you want to persevere with me, please stick around. If you've learned enough and you had your fill, then by all means pivot. And thanks for watching as much as you did. Okay, I'm starting the second 5-minute timer. Here we go into there's no such thing as too many channels. So for this one, if you say there's too many channels, Anthony, there's way too many channels, that's like saying there's too many folders on my computer. There's not too many folders. Your folders are organizing stuff. So here's a hypothesis. If you look at the next ideas, A through F, so the next 6 or so ideas, you might also agree there is no such thing as too many folders and therefore not too many channels in Slack. So let's dig in and see if I can convince you of this. So number 1, channels reduce context switching time. So if a channel lights up, and it is a channel called announcements-outages. Without even going to look at the message, I know the message is about an outage. So my mental context switching time is massively reduced as I go there. It's a lot like having rules in an email box. The difference is these rules are a lot smarter and they're collectively owned. They're not just owned by you. So number 1, mental context switching time is reduced. No matter how many channels you have, they only light up if something happened in them. Okay, so there you go. Next, channels reduce triage time. So if I see a COP channel, which is a community of practice, light up, I'm like, I can look at that later, right? I don't need to know about the COP right this second. But if one of my core team channels light up, I'm going to go there immediately and read what's going on because this is my core team. This could be very important, right? So again, I can triage more intelligently. It's a lot like rules on your email, but it's everyone owning it together. Okay. Next up, notification settings. So if you go to any channel and you right click on it, you can see change notifications and you get all kinds of notification options. Okay. So some of those options, every new message. I use this sort of thing only for a message where I am a core team member. I am the heart and soul of that channel. I'm going to turn on every new message. Just at mentions are for channels where I'm more of a stakeholder. Okay. As a stakeholder, I don't want to know about everything, but if you say at Anthony or at channel, then I'm going to come and look at what you're doing because apparently you want my attention. So just at mentions for channels where you're a participant but not critical as stakeholder. You can also set it to nothing. For channels that you're curious about, they will not notify you, but when you have time, you can go and take a look at what's going on and catch up at your leisure. You can also mute a channel. Muting a channel is even more than nothing. It grays them out. It moves them to the bottom of your list. They'll still light up with a badge if you get notified, right? But you're not going to, but they're going to be gray and down low and you can kind of dismiss them until later. So great thing to do, mute channels. I do that for my favorite pet channels and stuff like that. Notification schedule. You can actually tell it, hey, only notify me on the weekdays and between these certain times. So you can use that. I don't. I love being always connected, but most people like some time to themselves. Keyword notifications. So this one I love. Any client I'm at that has Slack, the first thing I do is I put in, if let's say I'm a safe coach or portfolio coach, love portfolio coaching or metrics, I'll put keywords, portfolio, metrics. And what happens is if someone types the word metrics or safe or portfolio in any channel that I have visibility to, it's as if they said at Anthony. How crazy is that? So I'll get a badge and everything. And I go, when I first set it up, I didn't really know what it did. I was like, why am I getting all these notifications? And I'm like, oh, these are keyword notifications. So it's almost like they said at Anthony when they say safe. How cool is that? What do you care the most about? Those are your keywords that you want to light up if someone says them in a channel. Be careful though. Don't put like you might be in trouble. What else do you have? At channel and at here. So at channel and at here, people get confused about all the time. They're not the same thing. People use them interchangeably. They should not. At channel is for something that's important for everyone to know. For example, the parking lot will be repaved. So at channel, the parking lot will be repaved is a pretty good use of that. You need everybody to be aware of this. But at here is right now. And if it's not right now, don't worry about it. So for example, at here, there's donuts in the break room, right? If someone sees that tomorrow, there's no more donuts. It's just not fun anymore. It's not even, it's like, thanks anyway. So at here is for something where, hey, at here, if there's anyone available, I need some help on something or other, and I just need an extra pair of hands, right? So at here is urgent, immediate. At channel is longer. Hey, I just need everyone to see this in their own time. Now, one more thing about at channel, only use it if you want to ping the stakeholders of your channel. If you say at channel because you want your core members to see it, your core members, they should already have their notifications set to all messages. So just typing in a channel should automatically ping all your core members. Only use that channel when you want your channel stakeholders to kind of sit up and listen. Okay. If you overuse that channel, your stakeholders get annoyed and then they stop paying attention. And then when you do need them, it's like the boy who cried wolf. Okay. Number D, adopt a search culture. So it looks like my time box is just about up. I still have D, E, and F, and then the miscellaneous accelerators and the power moves. Here they are on the screen, so you can kind of skim ahead and see them, but my timer is up. So I'm going to set it up for another 5 minutes. I think I can get it done in the last 5 minutes for a total of 15. So again, pivot or persevere. If you're having a good time, stick around. If you have had your fill, thanks for joining me up till now. Restarting. Okay. D, adopt the search culture. This one is far more critical when you have a wiki, and that's another experiment that we'll be doing videos on, but it also applies to a threaded chat. So one, you can search the current channel you are in with Control F for find. Now, this is kind of a keyboard shortcut. Sorry about that. And notice that there's also Control G to search all of Slack. So if I go over here to Slack and I hit Control G, notice it opens up a search window. And if I type in, peanuts, it'll search everything for peanuts, channels, messages, whatever, dog, whatever, it'll find it everywhere. Okay. On the other hand, if I'm in a specific channel, like say community, okay, and then I say Control F for find, it actually only searches in community. So Control F will search in community, Control G will search globally. Okay. Next up, we have to search for a file. So you can, in here, you can pin files. Now, I don't have them pinned in my personal space because I don't use files that much. You can customize this in your preferences, but you can pin files so it's always here, which I do in my client sites and my own work site, my company site. The file browser is fantastic. I just click here and then type in a file name and you'll find it. So what's great about this is anytime someone has shared a file with you, you can find it that easily. It's here. When I remember when I first started using Slack, I'm like, where all those files go? Right, the file browser is where they go, and lots of filters available in there as well. What else? Add keywords when sharing things. So here, notice image, PNG. When someone shares an image, you can't really search for that. So when I post an image, I might add company picnic photos, right? And that way later I can search for company picnic and it'll bring up that post. So if you're posting something that doesn't have a lot of context to it, consider using keywords in the post of that thing so you can search for it later. In other words, think about the later search when making the post. Okay. What else? We have pin things. So if you have a message that you think needs pinning, so I'll go back to community here, and you're like, ooh, this is really important. This mug here, that Venkat mug. Okay, I want to pin this. You go to the right and you can say pin. And when you pin something to the channel, it appears up here under pinned. And so now when you click on that, you can find pinned items very quickly. You can also, by the way, you'll notice that pinned items get stale after a while. Feel free to unpin them, right? Remove those pins frequently as you do pin stuff, as they no longer become super important to have pinned. Saved items, you can also save an item. And if you do that, you'll end up with a new thing here called saved. And you can go right quickly to your list of saved items. And then notes to yourself. Last thing here, if you go to yourself, so notice I'm Anthony RC. If I go to Anthony RC, if I send myself a message, I can do that like, oh, you sent me a URL I want to look at later. I can just send myself a message. Remember to look at this URL. And then I can even put a follow-up timer on it and it'll remind me tomorrow at noon or whatever. So I often will message myself. The other cool thing about messaging yourself is if you have Slack on your phone, you can then move back and forth. You can go to your phone and now that URL is on your phone, which might be very useful. So it's, or data of any kind. You can transmit data between your phone and your computer using the message to self. Okay. And that covers all of the search stuff. Send messages faster without scrolling. This one is a huge accelerator for me. So if I want to send a message to my colleague, Marianne, I don't go looking for her over here. Now there's only a few names, but in my workspaces, there's lots more, right? So and rather than browsing for people, I just do Control N for new, and then I type Marianne. And it's like, oh, Marianne, and I hit enter to select her, enter again to start typing, and I say hi, okay? So just like that, I'm messaging her. It also works for channels. I could say at community, right? So this is a great way to not have to browse around, Control N, the person's name, the channel name, whatever, and you'll get right to it. So that one's a big one for me. And then for those who do browse, if you do want to browse these things, I don't do that at all. You can create sections. You can choose a sort order of alphabetical, recently updated. priority order or hidden, hide certain things. So you can do all that. I don't bother because I don't browse anymore. I've fully embraced the search culture. All right, but even given all that, remember we're still covering just Anthony, there's too many channels. A channel architecture will absolutely help you. Channel architectures are all about coming up with prefixes. So here's one architecture. Every team will have team dash, but every product will have prod dash. So for example, my team was a game of scrums. So we would put game of scrum, team dash game of scrums. And now I know anything in there is about my team. Whereas product, one of our products was the way of work wiki. So product dash wow, if that lit up, ooh, someone's got a question or a comment about our product, right? Again, reducing context switching time. Communities of practice. X is if it's an external one. Now I know that Slack will put an icon on here if it's external, but having X dash makes it a lot more in your face that this is external, so be sensitive. Event, if we're having a big offsite, all the stuff, hey, don't forget this lunch is going to be in the main room today, right? Whatever. Announce is a one-way, only certain privileged users can put stuff in the announcement channel. Fun dash, this is like fun dash kitty pictures, right? Those are the ones I put on hide and go look at them very rarely. But anyway, coming with a channel architecture can again reduce your context switching time. All right, so that was my third 15 minutes. I really thought I could get it done in 15, but it looks like it's going to take 20. So once more time, if you want to pivot, by all means do so. The last thing we're going to cover are the miscellaneous accelerators and the keyboard power moves. Okay. Send later. One of my absolutely all-time favorite items. So if I say hi to Marianne here, but I don't want to bother her right now. In fact, and where is that one? Local time. So I'm going to move this one up. Local time. You know what time it is for your message recipient, right? So what you can do is click on Marianne and you can see, oh, it's only 6:20 her time, right? And if you look at my clock, it's 7:20. So she's an hour earlier than me. I'm like, oh, it's not too late to bother her. But if it is, I can actually click on this to the right of the send button, send it tomorrow at 9 or next Monday at 9, right? And that way I don't have to bother her outside of work items, or I can pick a custom time where I want it sent her. I use that all the time. I used to save things as drafts. You can see I have 2 drafts there. I would go and then the next morning I would just send all the drafts, all the things I think of that, I think of late at night. I don't want to bother them. Now I can just say send later. I use this thing tons when I have customers who have Slack. Okay. So that's local time and send later. By the way, if you look at, say, my friend Patrick here, right? So if I go to Patrick and I look at his time zone, you can see, wow, for him, it's 8:21. He's an hour later than me, right? So I need to be sensitive to that, et cetera. Really useful when someone's in London, right? Mark unread or mark for follow-up. So that's something, any message that you see from someone, you're like, oh, and even a message to yourself, which I talked about earlier. You can come in here and you can say, remind me about this, and when, or mark unread, and then it'll give you the badge so you can come in tomorrow and catch up. Okay. Those are the red badges I told you in the working agreement. We got to clear those first. And notice it also badges your channel. So you can see here, I have in my different spaces, I have a 1 here. These white circles mean that there's unimportant things that I have not read yet. Okay, so it's the red badges that really matter. / Zoom, if you have Zoom connected to Jira, just typing / Zoom will automatically launch a Zoom meeting between you and whomever the channel is with, either one-on-one or a whole channel. Very helpful. We do this all the time. Hey, I got a quick question for you / Zoom. Jira plugin, if you use Jira, you can put a Jira plugin, and now when someone does something in Jira, you get a notification in Slack. Jira does not have built-in notifications. They go to Confluence. So if you have Jira and Confluence, you can see notifications about Jira and Confluence, but it's very unintuitive to go to Confluence to understand Jira. Here, it comes right to your Slack, and so that's really exciting. Finally, navigation, back, forward, up, and down. So if you're in Slack, if you hit the Alt button and back arrow, it'll go back to the page you were previously at. See, I'm back to Marianne. If you hit front arrow, it goes forward to the page that you just left. Here I am back at Patrick. That's really the same as these arrows up here. Back in history, forward in history. And you can see they even tell you alt back arrow, alt forward arrow. So I like keyboards, but this is a nice way to get back where I just was. Also, if you look here where it says Patrick, if I hit alt up arrow, I go to Noel. And if I hit alt down arrow, I hit Windows key by accident. If I hit alt up arrow, I go to Noel. And if I hit alt down arrow, I can go back to Patrick or go to Sprout, etc. Okay. So that's navigation. Finally, the keyboard power moves. So we talked about some of these already above. Control N to send a new message, then type the person's name or the channel name. Control F to find in current channel. Control G to do a global find. Control 1, 2 is to switch between these spaces over here. So if I go back, and I'm just going to hit the control key and hold it, you'll see all the numbers popped up on those spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if I want to go to my cousin's couch, that's number 6, I can hit 6. And just like that, I'm now on the cousin's couch. Let's say I want to message Marianne. I can hit Control. I see it pops up 7. I hit 7. Then I hit Control N for new. And then I type in Marianne. I hit enter, and I say hi, and I'm sending me a message to Marianne. Okay. So keyboard shortcuts, if you love them, you got them galore. And the alt arrow keys we just talked about for the navigation here. So I don't need to have that twice. Let me get rid of that. Okay. So there you have it. 45 seconds left on my 20-minute time box. Sorry, such a long video, but hopefully if you're still watching, it's because all of this was super valuable. Adopting working agreements like this will make your threaded chat tool a true first-class member of your Agile experience. So that's it, folks. Thank you so much for your time. I'm Anthony Kramer, Pocket Coach, and we'll catch you on the next video.